Leveraging legacy applications. My name is Keone. I'm the Deputy CIO for Operations for OIMT in the state of Hawaii. I work for Sunny. I will be facilitating this session, but I'd like to introduce you to our session folks that we have. First, we have Robert Hoyt. Bob works with IBM customers across North America, defining the technology enablement required to leverage business opportunities generated by the healthcare transformation. The solutions include emerging business models to information strategies within an enterprise, cost reductions, and operational improvements. The first 20 years of Bob's career were invested in various roles within the healthcare industry, from programming to CEO of a direct delivery company delivering primary care across the country. Bob spent the remaining years in various consulting roles in technology, marketing, sales, M&A, and healthcare consumer strategy. His current areas of focus are emerging business models in healthcare, state healthcare agencies, interoperability at the federal level, and IBM's care management solutions. Our next panelist, David Keane. He's the Information Technology Manager for the Department of Human Resources Development, DHERD, in the Information Systems Office in the state of Hawaii. David has been with the state of Hawaii's Department of Human Resources for 20 years. Prior to that, Mr. Keane worked in the private technology and customer engineering and system consulting roles. As the IT manager of DHERD, Mr. Keane has led departmental modernization efforts in networking, systems consolidation, strategic development, and enterprise resource planning implementations. The ERP implementations included 2 rollouts of PeopleSoft version 6 and 8.3. Mr. Keane is also a member of the statewide IT steering committee, which is chaired by the state CIO and made up of members of the state and local government, as well as representatives from private sector technology companies. Mr. Keane serves as the program manager for the Shared Services Data Center Initiative, which will focus efforts on building the state's next generation data center. Okay. Ryan Shimamura is the Chief Information Officer for the Department of Human Services. He has been working for the state of Hawaii for over 27 years and is now responsible for overseeing the IT strategic direction, management, and operations for the Department of Human Services, which is a multi-billion-dollar organization in the state. Ryan is an active participant in many of the statewide IT initiatives currently underway, including governance, enterprise architecture, and he gets a lot of stuff done. He's got a big budget.
Wow. The truth comes out.
Allan Stone. I have a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah. That's it.
Allan's with the Department of Education. He also participates in most of our enterprise architecture initiatives, policy, governance, a lot of the improvements that DOE has been doing. They have had their hands full for the last 2 years, just nonstop doing networking and enterprise system implementation. Wireless even, I think, security. So a variety of different areas. He has a tremendous amount of experience to bring to the table. So with that, let's go over what it means to establish a reliable and secure infrastructure in the technology transformation. So our focus is that given an uncertain financial outlook, IT shops will again be asked to do even more with even less. Note to the legislature. And a good place to start is with core enterprise applications and software platforms. There are multiple ways to approach the modernization process. This session focuses on trends, possibilities, tools, techniques, resources, and alternatives for transforming legacy systems. And when I say we have legacy systems in the state, I mean we have legacy systems. So we have systems that are 40 years old that are still operating to the hard work of everybody that works at the state. So I believe there was even a VAX VMS at DOE.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Still alive.
Still running.
Oracle 5.0 maybe. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to David Keane.
Thank you, Keone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. Our journey with legacy systems began about 18 years ago with our pilot project of the HRMS PeopleSoft application. That went for a little less than a year, and then after that, we decided to go to full implementation. That began in about 1997, 98, and by 2000, we had a full rollout of the application statewide to all state agencies. In 2006, actually in 2002, 2 years after that implementation completion, we began moving our system, the PeopleSoft system, to the newest release at the time, which was 8.3. That took another 2 years, and in 2004, we went into production with that system. Support and maintenance. Implementation, support maintenance. Can we go back one? Okay. And since 2004, we've been in support maintenance mode. So next year will mark about 10 years since we've been in the support maintenance mode. Now, if you've been in IT for any long period of time, you know that 10 years is like multiple lifetimes, and you lose a lot of momentum, and people kind of get uneasy and restless. So we've been trying to keep some kind of momentum going in our systems. Due to some other things which I'll cover in a few minutes, you know, keeping that momentum is really difficult, especially with large, complex IT systems. Next slide. Our challenges along the way. Our challenges along the way included aging hardware and software systems. Many of our hardware systems, if not all, are no longer supported by the vendors. Our hardware systems are approaching 10 years in use. I think our newest system is still around 5 or 6 years old. So these systems continue to hamper our ability to better service our customers. Insufficient operating funds, who hasn't had that problem in the past 5 years? Our operational capabilities, like everyone's, is impacted by the budget. In fact, our budget, 80% or greater of our budget is dedicated to just support maintenance costs, leaving very little left over to do hardware upgrades and improvements in our infrastructure. Solutions. We are looking to get out of the hardware and systems admin business. Shock, right? I think we all realize that those kinds of services are best done centralized by a well-equipped agency. And that agency, we're hoping, is going to someday emerge to be what comes out of OIMT and the ICSD partnership. We know that the lift in running those systems is fairly heavy, and we no longer want to do that. We want to get back to focusing our core application, our mission, which is basically human resources. We plan to fully participate in OIMT's initiatives with the services catalog, what's being headed up by Keone right now. And we're moving, in fact, we're moving in that direction already. This will allow us, again, to refocus our efforts towards focusing on human resources management for state government and delivering other services and features and functions and solutions to our user base, which is spread out across all 17 departments. And that's it. And mahalo, and thank you.
Next up, Allan Stone, Director of Information
Do it
Systems.
from here or there?
Either way.
Huh?
Either way.
What?
From there is okay, if you want.
What? I think it might be better.
Come on. He's coming up.
Taking control.
We got enough? Where are we?
It's hard to tell. You have to look over there.
Oh, you still have to.
Use that to advance.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. The problem we were faced with we have they're just nearing 25-year-old financial system and about the same age budget system on different technologies. They're still running. They're still mission critical. We still depend on them. Every school, every office uses them every day. And but they are, although we put a modern GUI on some of it, but reporting, getting data out is old school. You can't easily get to the data. We basically had green bar reports coming out of our financial system. You can do online quick looks, but they're not good for cumulative things easily. Then back some years ago, we put those reports on the web, made them accessible on the web, but there's still green bar reports on the web. So I forget how many years ago, about 4 or 5, we undertook an effort to basically put a modern superstructure on the whole financial system, and we call it financial reporting system. It integrates the data, which is now disparate. Our budget and financial system are not even integrated well. There's a nightly feed, used to be 2 or 3 times a week, but it's a very limited integration. So the new system provides selectable reporting depending on who you are, what your needs are. It's dynamic. You can do aggregate, you can do drill down, and it's timely and complete. So I'm not sure why that's not displaying well in the big
Black box.
black box. Yeah. Now the first black box says Financial Reporting System (FRS). The second black box says Web Portal. So it pulls data from the budget system, from financial system, and for our HR system, because we have employee data in there and our financial plan data is in our HR system. And the portal, I'll also cover a little bit about the disparity of what we're dealing with here, because the financial management system is an evolution. It's the next generation of what was famous for the state. It does use a relational database, IBM DB2, it uses CICS for the online. Budget system is digital alpha, using an RDB database, which was bought by Oracle, but it's still an older, limited style database. And our HR system is based on Oracle database. So the FRS technology, we're using Microsoft technology, SQL Server 2008, SSIS, SSRS, and we're serving the whole reporting system to users through SharePoint. Because it is tied in with our longitudinal data system, which also has the analytic module. So the longer term is going to move toward the analytics. I'll just emphasize reports are dynamically generated. They're not canned reports where my organization gets a report monthly or daily or weekly. It's what I need right now. I select the filters, the report's generated in a relatively few seconds, and whatever level I'm interested in. I can look at the school level. If I'm a higher level state, I can look at that school's financials, or I can roll it up to groups of schools or the whole state level. This is an example of one of the reports. It doesn't look that exciting, but if you go from a place where you could never get that information, let alone right away, it's a big improvement. And again, these are the questions that, simple questions, but we couldn't do it readily before. What's this?
Sorry.
Okay.
It's a good reason to interrupt.
Sure. We can do it again. Future development areas. We're building another set of reports that our financial people have asked for. And we're also mapping the data to the dimension and fact tables of our longitudinal data system, so that in the future we can start doing things like comparing resource expenditures with student achievement. And we're also upgrading to SQL Server 2012 and SharePoint 2013. And that's the summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Allan. Next up will be Ryan Shimamura from DHS. CIO.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm not going to be standing like Allan because you won't see me. So, okay. So basically for me, we're talking about extending the life of a legacy system, but in a way to better it, yeah? The first thing, besides the technology that it sits on, and or if you have enough monies to do something, there's a couple of simple things you got to think about. Can your current system continue to do the job, right? If it doesn't do it today, keeping it around doesn't really help. What condition is it in? Can you keep it around for much longer? Your technology might not allow that, but if everything aligns and you're good, then it's a good thing to do. Okay. So basically, we're looking at two. Oh, sorry, I looked away. We're looking at two different systems. Okay. The first one. No. The first one is our child protective system. Basically, the system has some pros. The current system is reliable, currently captures all the data necessary, and does all the major interfaces with the federal agencies. And it provides the user with actually has all the data that the user needs. The cons is because it's a green screen system, they can't get it from, it's hard to get it from outside, from their office. It's hard to put data into it. And then at the same time, on the other end, it's hard to get the data that's in the system out to them when they need it. Okay? So that being said, we plan to utilize the current system as the base to move forward. Okay. The idea of that is because the system kind of meets their needs today, but not in the best fashion. If we do some of this work in some of these changes we're looking to do, and in phases, the idea is to give them accelerated functionality. Yeah? Okay. So one is to address the user's issues. We plan to create a new front end that will allow them to enter data basically from the web, right? Or more web-based concept. On the back end, we're looking to put tools in to allow them to utilize the data that they have much better. They can see some of this information from the field and or provide them some statistical and analytical type information, yeah? Maybe dashboard type information. Okay. And then as we go on, we replace all the different functions over the years as monies allow. And at the end, we got a new system, including the database. So by the time they finish, it's not just it's not like a facelift, it's basically a new system. Okay. Our other system, oh, he's there already. Our other system, what we call HANA, sorry, the name and the words don't kind of match, but that's the way it is. This one is a little bit different. The pros of this one, it is more modern to start with. It is Java, it is web-based, it is whatever, yeah. We have one con on it. It's running on a non-relational database, and that was actually there on purpose. It was there with a system that shared clients. Since that system is moving, we're looking to do the same with this. Instead of moving the whole system, because the users like the system, and we only have basically the one con on it, we're looking to leverage a platform that we currently own, which is basically it's like an enterprise server on the mainframe, the IFL. We want to use that because it's reliable. We can get some simplifications out of it. It's very secure and scalable. And then we can get potential cost savings, especially in the license area. From there, what we want to do is basically replace the database into a relational database where now we can get more, we can use more tools, I guess, against it and do the similar things that we're looking to do with the other system. Allow better reporting, better utilizing, and better access to data. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, going to bring up Bob Hoyt, and he's going to go through his information. He's going to stand up at the podium. All right.
Thanks. So my remarks are a little different. I was asked to come in and talk about SOA, which, contrary to public belief, is not some other architecture, but a service-oriented architecture. To prepare for this, I went through the 12-year plan that Sonny and his team had put together and realized that, okay, to build shared services and to do the business process reengineering and to convert those into services, SOA is an excellent choice. And so what I've done is put together a couple of high-level tools and approaches that, can be helpful in that process. So, you would start with a service-oriented reference architecture. If you reevaluate the three case studies that you've just heard, they're talking about breaking legacy systems into components, interaction services, process services, mostly information services, because they're trying to get at the data and do more to expose that data to end users. So, this is the kind of document that you would start with to build a specific architecture for the system that you're looking to transform into a service-oriented type of system. Particularly when you talk about coming from 40-year-old systems, those are characterized by having the process and the I/O and the data, all commingled into one. And what service-oriented architecture is about is separating those kinds of things. So this is a handy way to get started on building, the specific architecture you're looking for. The next thing you look at is another reference architecture around information reference management. So these columns represent the various disciplines that you go through to identify the sources. What do you have to do to acquire it and clean up the quality? Where are you going to aggregate it and store it? And then the business access services would be examples of where you would put SOA, information-based services that operate on that aggregated data that you've put together. And then you separate that from the delivery. What do I do with that information to make it consumable? And then the rules and flexibility around the actual consumption from the end user perspective. I use a lot of healthcare examples since I'm a healthcare guy, but if I'm delivering information to two doctors, I don't necessarily need to force those doctors to look at the information the same way. I can give them tools to allow them to customize the way they consume information. So the idea is you separate all of this stuff, and then of course you've got infrastructure things to run it on. So this is another reference architecture to help you get your work organized, and it acts as an accelerator. Another work product that you would generate during this process is developing the use cases and mapping those to services. So this is the first step in decomposing the. If you heard the lunch speaker. Decomposing that bent-up mess into some straight pipe and all of the services that are resulting from that. And this then allows you to move to the next step, which is to develop the service candidate lists. These are the ones that I'm going to develop first, and here's what they're going to do. And so these become control documents that you use to get the projects organized. What these lead you to is an SOA service factory kind of approach. So when you're taking 40-year-old programs and breaking them down and rebuilding them as service-oriented architectures, you're going to end up with lots of services. Easily could number into the thousands. So you start thinking about how am I going to do that with some logical approach, and it's a factory approach. So it starts with a workflow concept that you would use to provide the governance, the architecture, the data architecture, because you remember you're separating these things. So this is kind of a high-level flow of how you would organize, the architectures. And then that leads you to something a little more detailed, which are the basic 13 steps to set up a factory to start generating hundreds of services that you would use to produce whatever results you're looking for. As an example, we have a statewide healthcare social services solution at IBM, and this is the SOA view that we start with on that. So this is how we take all of that complexity and simplify it to, one simple diagram, and then underneath this would be lots of more detail. Then there's a point of view that on the platform and the operating system, Linux is a typical choice of the operating system, and enough said on that. And then I think you guys are heavy into the mainframe, so we put together a potential point of view of what an SOA architecture would look like on a mainframe kind of basis to give you the platform that you need. And I know that's a lot to go through in a short period of time, but that's what it is.
Great.
All right. Thanks.
What was really evident to me from these presentations, especially Bob's, is that he actually did read the ITIRM strategic plan. I commend you on your use of functional decomposition in Excel spreadsheets with the pivot tables and flowcharts. Excellent. On Sunny's behalf, a single tier. A single tier. It was wonderful. Yeah, N-tier architecture. Okay. Same with the longitudinal work that Allan's done, all the stuff with Ryan. He's really taking the multi-platform architecture by storm, and David with moving the information assurance in our data assets, that we cannot afford to lose into the latest, century. So we have some time now for some questions and answers. I'm going to try and facilitate this, and I would like to get as many questions from those out there. And if you don't ask questions, I will be calling names and pointing people out, even in the back of the room. So let's start with
The guy that's leaving.
yeah. He's getting out before he gets out. Thank you, David. But before you leave, David, yes, no. Okay. Legacy architecture, it's something you have to deal with, you have to maintain. What are some of the key lessons learned and you've seen over the years in, shifts in resources? What are the key challenges and lessons learned that you have faced in dealing with the legacy architecture, keeping it running while moving towards the new platforms and the newer technology?
I think one of the key things that we learned was that prior, when the state brought up systems in the past, we approached systems from like a lump sum funding model. Yeah, we got a bucket of money to implement the system, and then money afterwards to maintain and support that system. But out there somewhere was not a replacement cost, and I think we kept these systems around a lot longer than we should have. When Sunny was coming on board, what was before the CIO Council, the IT Governance Committee, put together a document to him that outlined some of these issues that we were dealing with over the years. One of the bullet items in that document was changes to systems acquisitions and how we fund these initiatives. And hopefully as we move forward, there's going to be more of a system lifecycle approach to acquiring these large complex systems in state government, and then a retirement date, or at least an upgrade date somewhere out there, so that we can kind of move things forward and not be strapped to these aging systems that move off of, move to end of life or reach end of life or move off of support from the vendors. That was an important lesson because we're dealing with that right now. All of our hardware and most of our software is no longer supported. That's why we're charging ahead with, and we're in lockstep with what Keone is doing, in bringing out these cloud services and this infrastructure services, because we're most interested in that, because we can't afford the replacement costs for the hardware there. So we're working along with his team. We're starting the conversations and moving forward and making sure that as we go forward, there's going to be, we're going to be in good shape. We're also cognizant of the fact that out there somewhere is the new ERP, which means that our existing system will be able to shut that system down at some point, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years. That's the time frame that Sunny has given us, and we're going to hold him to that, because we really want to move forward.
Okay. Anybody else?
On that same question, I think I was just going to remark that in keeping legacy systems alive and getting good use from them, we've had less trouble with the hardware, keeping even, I mean, you know, our financial system is on the mainframe, and of course, I mean, having well-established, reliable vendors on the hardware, even our digital VAX that Sunny likes to make fun of, is a workhorse. I mean, and of course, digital was bought out by Compaq, who was bought out by HP, but HP has performed wonderfully, keeping that equipment running well with very little downtime. And but on the software side, some of our applications, especially the package application, like our student information system, which we I think made the decision in 2004. You know, that's not 25 years, not 40 years. But when the company got bought out a few years ago, and the new company decided to sunset that product, we've got 12,000 teachers using that every day, and we weren't ready to migrate to something else. And we're still just now trying to do that. So we're keeping this out-of-support system. It's got an out-of-support Oracle database, which we can't change because the system wouldn't support it. It's situations like that that give us more trouble with vendors, that the vendor landscape changing than the underlying products. We're usually able to migrate. If we have control of the application, we're usually able to migrate the underlying system software, the operating system, and database. And again, the hardware has not really been the problem, but software, application software, and package application has been.
Yeah, you know, there's been for a number of years, we've been able to set up enough structure in the code, in the databases that exist, in the mainframe, you know, and the COBOL and things, and link those all up with our federal chargebacks and other reporting processes, and it really works very well right now, right? But now we're in a period of change. What's going to happen with those systems if you start looking at more commercial off-the-shelf, COTS? We have, you know, 90% customized software out there in databases, right? And in some cases, like with what David was mentioning many versions back, what are the impacts to your businesses, you know, from having to go with a new strategy of, you know, COTS over-the-shelf solutions? What are the impacts to your business? I mean, are you going to have to just stop doing stuff, or are you going to find out new ways to do it? I'm looking at Ryan mostly.
You wanna,
I saw you looking at me. Actually, that question kind of fits us right now. We have not the systems I talked about, but another system that we are actually moving to a COTS type system. But that COTS type system, so it's actually twofold, right? We are moving to that COTS type system, one, and two, we have to change the business, right? How you do business and how you move forward. So kind of one goes with the other.
How do you deal with the richness of the data? You know, like David, you have 30 years of, you know, employee information in the DHERD system, right? I mean, classifications, everything you can imagine. how do you bring that data forward? How do you mine that data and then continue to keep it, in league with improvements in the processes and the other types of things? So the data is everything. So.
Right, right. Well, we haven't been able to do much of that. We're in survival mode and support maintenance mode, so we're not able to really enhance our system beyond a certain point because of the cost issues and also the support issues with our unsupported software and hardware. That's a challenge that I think everyone deals with legacy systems. And it's tough. There's not a clear road. If we wanted to upgrade our system, our migration path was eliminated several releases ago. That's how far behind we are. So we would essentially do a new implementation of whatever HR, ERP we're going to bring in. So we're kind of cut off from the future at this point. And moving forward is going to be really a big challenge for us. That's why we're hoping for ERP is going to be, the holy grail and our savior in a lot of respects, because that ties in many other areas that is going to improve state government. So we're looking forward to that.
Bob was talking about a service-oriented architecture, and with that comes some operational readiness considerations. Where are we at with our staff, with our training, with our skill sets in order to support moving to these new platforms and these service-oriented architecture?
I don't work for you guys. You got to answer that one.
We at DHS been looking at the SOA technology, or not really technology, concept for some time now, but we haven't really been able to move fully into it. So as far as we're concerned, we have some skills around it, but not much.
Right. Our skill sets are deeply rooted in the client server side and that NT architecture, which PeopleSoft is built around. So all of the new stuff, we have no knowledge in those areas. So we're going to have to ramp up those skill sets. The other thing that we're dealing with is we don't have those resources in-house. So we've gone from, since 2010, we're down 60% in staffing. So we're just trying to keep the lights on, as they say, and keep our system operational until that glorious day comes when ERP becomes available and we can smoothly move over there. And I know that's the utopian ideal, but we're hoping for the best.
Allan?
Yeah, I just want to maybe just divert the topic a little bit to your question about how do you bring forward years of data, and looking ahead on the student data, which obviously takes up a lot of our energies. We have student record system, student information system, which has many components. We have our special services, which covers all of the interventions, all of the discipline, and then assessments and things like that. But we are we invested in kind of aligning ourselves with a national initiative of data standards, educational data standards. It started out as a school interoperability framework that started about 10 or 12 years ago, and now is kind of merging with a somewhat larger data standard, common educational data standards. So the mapping of this, we're doing the mapping right now of all our student data. We have a operational data store initiative. We built an operational data store several years ago and use it to transfer data from one system to another rather than going point to point. It goes to the operational data store, and then we feed it out from there to all the subscriber systems. But we're now redoing that on this national standard, also with a better, more flexible tool set. It's hard work because if you can imagine trying to standardize on things like attendance data. I mean, not all, even though we have standard in Hawaii, schools don't do it quite the same way. When is a student absent? Is it the whole day? Is it 2 hours? Is that counted as day absent? Is it excused or unexcused? All of this data has many, many perturbations, and when you go nationally and try to standardize on that, how do you make that make sense? But we're actually grappling with that right now in the student arena, and going forward, we're looking to that being the way to kind of prevent data from becoming stale or unrecoverable in the long term. Now, I'm not sure on the and I should know better on the ERP side, with HR and financial data. I think there maybe you do have fewer inherent variations, but than the student realm. But that may be, I don't know if there are comparable initiatives in the standardization area to prevent us from getting kind of bounded in our ERP initiative from something that's vendor specific. Anyway.
So to kind of raise the discussion up a couple levels of abstraction, to me the first step is to define an enterprise data model so that everybody dealing with data knows what the target is going to be, and you've already agreed on what those definitions are. What you find in all of the stovepipes represented by 40-year-old systems is, the data models are all different. As soon as you start aggregating this data, you've got business terminology to reconcile. And in the case of clinical systems, you've got clinical terminology to reconcile. It begins with that data model, which ties into the words we've heard about data governance, because now I put my governance over that enterprise data model. And in this context, enterprise would probably be by agency as opposed to one for the state. But 20 years from now, you need to be at one for the state because all of this data has to, be melded together. Again, healthcare examples. Everybody talks about interoperability to move clinical data around, but from your tax records, where there is a preponderance of leaded paint, ties directly to childhood diseases and mental and nervous diseases. So, part of the overall healthcare initiative with predictive models and whatnot needs to start bringing that kind of data in. When we talk about school lunch programs that are being cut out for budgetary reasons, those are going to impact in healthcare costs. So the more that we know about that from a data perspective, the better advice we can give the legislators that say, well, look, if you think you're going to save, $1 million here, you're going to generate $5 million worth of cost over here. So let's be more rational about those kinds of decisions. Putting all of that on this side, then you've got all of the unstructured data, which, is 80% of what you use to drive everything that you do. That all needs to be harvested and added to this structured data that were in the first part of the remarks. And that's the general process that you would go through to get from A to B.
That's very good. That's a best practice. And one thing that's always prevalent in all the IT and the processes, in government, and our job is, somewhat a lot of process, is that all processes can be documented. Therefore, they can be analyzed, and we can, modulate, and see where the variances are, and as we study the data before we scrub it and put it in. So we have, I think in the state, we have so much investment, and we really have top-notch, mainframe, COBOL people that skill set's not very, widely out there, except for the people that are maintaining the systems now. I want to point out that on this slide, I have Don M. Hongo from ICSD. I don't want to call him out, but Don heads up one half of our applications group that supports these mainframe applications and things like that. And his team is always getting in there and designing, new code and getting data and ETL and getting stuff out and rewrapped into another, database to push out for a different way. His other counterpart is Dennis Uesugi over here, also at ICSD. I put his name there because he handles so much applications stuff that if you have questions about legacy applications, talk to Don. Don't send it to me, send it to Don, because he knows all that stuff inside and out. What trends are you seeing? Because you're talking about not necessarily interoperability, but man, there are so much data is trending to be cross-jurisdictional, health-related stuff, even the ERP stuff. I mean, the education stuff. Now the new networks are coming online. The connectivity is happening. The enterprise systems are going in place under an enterprise architecture and some data, some limited data models. And we're getting into applications in business sense now. What trends are you seeing in terms of your data needing to talk to other data to produce answers and results? I mean, are you seeing more of a convergence there? I mean, and is it rapid? Is it, I mean, what's the nature of that confluence of, information?
Well, I'm not sure if this is the same question you're asking, but for our new Medicaid system, okay, we're not the connector, okay? And I'm not saying anything bad about them, but that's what you're hearing about. Along with this new Medicaid movement, Affordable Care Act and whatnot, we just implemented a new Medicaid system. With this Medicaid system, and this is what Keone is talking about, we basically need information now from other departments that we had before, but now we need them more, if not real time, more real time. In the past, it would take days or if not longer to get that information from the other departments because we would have to send or create an interface, send a job out, set that up, bring in more data, bring in the data the next day, run that, see what happens, right? Today, it's not fully, the technology is fully done, but not all the agreements were done yet, so we're still working on that. But today we have what we call the State Hub. The State Hub is a way of tying kind of the SOA concept. How do we tie information together from the different places? This State Hub will allow us to do that. And that was built through the, in relations to the new Medicaid system.
Right, so let me just draw that out. So in a Medicaid eligibility determination, they have to get tax information, Social Security information. They got to get all these different pieces of it that runs through this hub to go and mine for data to qualify people before they go on to the next step. Right?
Yes, and like I said, that used to take days. Now it can take. The idea it should be overnight, if not faster.
Well, it's interfacing with mainframes, with other database stuff. I mean, it's older technology, legacy technology where we have all that information.
Basically everything, yes. Yeah. The idea of that technology also, though, is now other departments can talk to the other departments with that same infrastructure. Yeah, so I think this is a good thing. Helps us move forward.
Does that State Hub retain the data, or is it just kind of?
It's a transport.
It's a transport.
It's a
Okay.
transport.
So
Yeah, I think
it's like
that's-
what I call the our ODS. Yeah. Well, the ODS right now is within the department.
I think that's the point that I would make, is that it's easy to conclude in this kind of discussion that we're going to put all of the data into one physical database, which is not likely to ever be the case. So, you're talking about federated models that are using metadata to govern the access and with rules as to what you're allowed to see and do with data before you're given the data. So this is a federated model. Everybody gets to keep their data, but the metadata tells everybody what's available, and rules through the ESBs will determine who gets what access to what and when and where.
Well, with our institutional knowledge of structured databases, we have to go down the road of a lot of different mechanisms to get into the later greater platforms and technology. So like as if you were going from structured to relational to object relational and unstructured. I mean, in the database side, from programming from COBOL all the way up to Agile, and Java type, with UML designs and things like that. Is it possible? Can we get there? Can we become agile with our legacy applications and get ourselves into the next generation?
I feel we can. And in fact, in one of the systems that I talked about, the child protective system, it is a mainframe-based system. It is green screen, like I said, and that was part of the problems. We are working on a project right now, not to redo the whole system, but for strategic screens, areas, and whatnot. We're looking to allow them currently, I mean, even before we start the bigger picture, allow them to utilize things like tablets over the web to actually affect information that's sitting on the mainframe today. And basically that would, and still run all the rules that the mainframe, or the application, not mainframe, sorry, the application already has built into the application. This process will allow them to basically do the work now outside. So I believe what you're asking is what we're trying out right now. We know that technology works, we just need to implement it and make greater use of it. And, and that's what I was talking about, bringing better functionality to the legacy system that we have today, much sooner than just waiting 5 years to build a brand new one and plopping it in, yeah.
So let me add a couple of bricks to that pile. One of the things that IBM does on a regular basis annually is a global technology outlook, and in that process we identify what we think are the disruptive technologies coming for the next 10 years, and as evidenced in your 12-year plan, mobile is, is a major disruptive technology. So when you start thinking about how you're going to re-engineer your business, think about the fact that a mobile app has an average lifespan of about 72 seconds. So if you went through all of the processes that you have in your various agencies and start thinking about that whole set of processes in 60-second slices, now you start getting the paradigm in place that you need in order to be developing the things that you need in 10 years. And I think there's going to be whole new ways of looking at the infrastructure software and what's done in that infrastructure versus what we call an application. A lot more driving to put business rules maintained by business people, and IT is more involved with maintaining the integrity of the data and the interoperability and connectivity. So a lot of interesting paradigm shifts coming in the next 10 years, particularly with things like mobile technology.
Great. Okay, at this time I'd like to open up questions to the floor. Sharon? Go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. Thank you, Sharon. I meant to say that. We started this financial reporting initiative before the ERP effort was really underway, although we had done our own ERP initiative a few years before that, and gone all the way to an RFP, and then found out that we were really, even though there had been some promises of funding, we found out we weren't going to get the funding. So the RFP literally went on the shelf. I mean, it was a shame because a lot of effort had been put into it. But about, I don't remember if it was before then or shortly after that, we said, you know what, we're gonna be living with these for a while yet. So that's when we undertook the FRS effort. But we're definitely committed to joining the state ERP effort. Or we have a number of staff going to all the meetings, being part of the teams, and meanwhile, the FRS has become something that people count on, and that for us at DOE, it's often the functional needs that become the driver. if we've had, sometimes it takes us multiple years to roll out a system like a student information system because we have so many sites and so many people to train. But as we get comfortable with it, we're probably already looking ahead because there's some of the requirements you wanted to include, you probably weren't able to, and new requirements, new possibilities are coming up. And you'll want to integrate, like we decided we needed a formative assessment platform that we hadn't had before, and that needs to tie in with our student information system and with the gradebook environment. So as these things become more important from a need standpoint, that's when we're beginning to plan the replacement or the evolution of the existing systems.
I think another thing that the state's doing, generally following with the governance from OMT, has been site an assessment of the current system, gap analysis for where they need to go in the business processes, develop a roadmap, and then start executing on that roadmap. And in most cases, we are, just at the early beginning stages of making, moves towards a positive, change in the, software environment and the hardware and stuff like that. And the infrastructure side is happening a little faster because it's less encumbered by the other business processes. But Randy's group in the business process reengineering and business transformation has been doing a real fantastic job in getting out there with the departments and talking to them and doing needs requirements and business requirements gathering and that affect what the software needs to do, how it supports us today and going forward. So, any other questions? Okay, best practices, anything? Any words of wisdom in this area of legacy application support, development, migration? Words of wisdom. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow. Go slow to go fast. Go fast to go slow.
Hurry up and wait.
Don't cancel your maintenance contracts.
Oh, definitely. Don't cancel your maintenance contracts.
Yeah. Keep your programmers happy.
Especially that.
Okay. Well, under our slide, I say, how can you help? It's really in participation. We need as many people to participate and help us in these processes. We have a lot of meetings out there through our governance, through James Lum. We have enterprise architecture meetings. We have ERP steering committee meetings. We have a lot of workshops that really develop these requirements for these systems moving forward in the way that they're supported now and how they're going to migrate, if they're going to migrate, and some of that decision support. And it's really integrated between all the departments, all the agencies, all the branches of government, and even with the cities and counties and the neighbor islands. People have been very involved and have been getting involved, and that is what makes a difference. So who do you contact? In terms of legacy applications, I'm going to ask that you contact Don. If you can't get a hold of Don, if you're not a state employee, you have him in the directory, you can contact me. My information is on the website where the agenda is posted for this event. So I'm going to let you know that we have, immediately following this session, little housekeeping, there will be a 15-minute break followed by the awards program at the Coral Ballroom. And the awards reception will be in the exhibit area. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this session. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, panel, for your wisdom, words of wisdom. And thank you for being at the summit. Appreciate your time. Thank you.